What's up, y'all? Welcome back to From the Ground Up. This is Dr. Becky, and today I have a very special guest. She is someone I have had the absolute privilege of knowing and watching grow for the past close to 3.5 years, and I am so excited to have her on the show and for you guys to hear from her. Collette is a coach and an educator based in the northeast of England, and she has a lovely accent to boot. And she specializes in pre- and postnatal training, pelvic health, and biomechanics. She's been working with women for over a decade, helping them to return to training, return to sport, and everyday life, honestly, with confidence through movement-based whole body strategies. She also delivers workshops for gyms and coaches across her region, and she's currently in full-time physio school, PT school over there across the pond, continuing to deepen her knowledge of assessment and rehab. But beyond all of the fancy credentials and experience, here's what I want you to know about Collette. She is the perfect example of a woman with a big vision who is not waiting until she's quote unquote ready to go after it. She was actually in my very first No Kegels course cohort and has been a part of my clinical mastermind ever since. And I've watched her show up again and again, studying, experimenting, leading, and staying consistent over a long time, over years. So if you have ever felt stuck wondering if you need more certifications or the perfect timing before you take the leap, this episode is for you. Collette is living proof that when you're clear on your why and when you're really rooted in your purpose and willing to take that action, even before you feel fully ready, you can start leading and treating differently now while building the bigger vision that you believe in. So I'm so excited. Thank you, Collette, for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me, Becky. This is, I don't want to gush, but this is an honor.
Oh, no. It's an honor for me to have you. I've loved getting to know you. So I'm excited to just dive in and kind of hear about your journey and, how you're changing the game and all of those fun things. Specifically, you've been helping women with pelvic floor issues as a trainer in the space, well before you were even in physio school. And I would love to kind of hear, how did you build that confidence in helping your clients when you weren't even necessarily sure, if you were quote unquote qualified enough to help them with some of these impairments that they might otherwise, be seeking out, a licensed PT for?
So I've been doing this, as you said, for just over a decade. It's funny because I moved to London in 2004, originally from South Africa, hence that little slight
There's a
twang
little
you
bit
can
there,
hear.
yeah.
A little bit, not quite anglicized yet. Um, so I'd always want to do some sort of PT or physio growing up, but unfortunately, I never got into PT school in South Africa, and I ended up doing a degree in economics and business. So when I moved to the UK, I still had that vision of being a PT, doing something with training people, making them feel better. That's always been my passion. Even as a little kid, like we were outside kids, all the outside doing things, and I had two older brothers, and my parents never said that I couldn't do what they did. So there was never that mindset for me. I was always like, well, if they do that, I'm going to do that. And I mention that because I'll bring that round to, it's a big why I help women, but I'll come back to it. So when I moved to the UK, I still had this idea of somehow training people. It was never really in my mind for pre and postnatal. That actually hadn't ever crossed my mind. And at that point, I didn't even know there was difference in training or that pregnant people worked out. Uh,
I love
so
it.
I was 24 at the time. I wasn't even thinking about kids myself.
Yeah.
So I worked in London, had to make ends meet. So just got a desk job. And I met my husband in 2009, and he knew my dream, and he was very supportive. And he said, if this is something you want to do, I will support you. You go do it. I studied to be a personal trainer while doing my desk job. And one of the modules was pre and postnatal training. So I was like, oh, what's this? And the textbook was about this big. And
Tiny.
it was basically It was basically how to check for diastasis
Yeah.
and how to help pregnant women off the floor. And that was it. And I
Roll
was
them
like, well,
over.
this is great. Yeah, this is great. I am, qualification complete. I thought I knew everything based on these two things that they taught us in personal training. So I thought, oh, great. I got a job at a CrossFit gym and they had a pre and postnatal class. So I was like, I can help women because I know how to check their diastasis and I know how to help them off the floor.
Yeah, there
And
you go.
the training for me was no different. Like what was on the board, that's what you're going to do. I had no concept of modifications, nothing. I was at the point in time, I thought I was helping and I thought I was doing good work. No one seemed to complain. They were very happy just to train. But then my husband and I, we left London and we moved up to the northeast. And where we moved to, a CrossFit gym had just opened. So I weaseled my way in and I just literally sat at the gym all day long, talking the heads off the current owners and like, I can help you. We can open up a pre and postnatal. That was now my niche because I thought, you know what, that's going to be my niche because there's obviously a market for it. The town I was in had a lot of, it was a small town. There were a lot of pregnant women. We had the RAF base there as well. So yeah, I talked them into it. And so we started off with 2 sessions a week and they would come in and once again, not much modification, just let's do what's on the board. Also, there were babies lying on the floor and we were working out around them, which is
CrossFit
looking
gym?
back.
Oh no.
It's just horrendous.
It's okay. Now you know.
Oh, and now we know all about insurance, and the babies go literally in a crate,
Yes.
locked away. Um, and so that grew. So word of mouth spread, and that became a very, very popular class where I live. And it ended up being like 5 days a week. It was totally full, 14 women in a class with all the prams and all the babies. And I thought that it was going really well. No one complained about any pelvic floor dysfunction. And I didn't do any extra learning because I thought I knew all that I needed to know. And so these women would come back to class after having a baby and I'd literally stick my fingers down the gap and be like, oh, that's great. Yeah, crack on. There was no time limit for them coming back. So for 2 weeks postnatal, they would say, I feel great. I'm like, well, it's brilliant.
I love
I
it.
know. The shame. The absolute shame. And there are posts, I've got posts that I haven't deleted. They're way down at the bottom, but there I am, like,
Yeah.
glorifying some woman coming back 2
Oh,
weeks
I'm gonna have to
post-birth. I'm
scroll
saying,
back and look.
oh God, don't. It's a reminder for myself. This is a reminder from where
Yeah.
we've come. And then it must have been 2019, just before lockdown. And one of the women came to me and she said, Collette, I think I have a prolapse. And I was like, what's this? I hadn't heard of a prolapse. As a pre and postnatal coach, I had not heard. And I don't know if I hadn't created an environment where women in my class felt they could come to me or if they felt like this is just normal, and leaking or prolapses, or maybe they didn't think that I could help them. But anyway, one of the women said she had a prolapse, and I went home to my husband. I said, she has this prolapse. And I looked it up. And I was obviously like shocked that this could happen, to someone. And the fire was lit because I was like, well, I don't know what to do with that. She would tell me where she felt it and when she felt it. And I was like, well, go lighter. And it didn't necessarily help. And then she said, I'm going to go and see a pelvic floor physio. And I was like, oh, okay, brilliant.
Sure.
And I looked that up as well.
Yeah. You're like, great,
Yeah.
great. What is that?
Yeah, good. Yeah. And then I was like, well, she went and she said, this is what the pelvic floor physio told me to do. I was like, okay, right. So I need to go to this pelvic floor physio to see what they do because then I can refer women on. So I went and I got an understanding, it was very much like all the background, bowel movements, sex, post-pregnancy, pregnancy, all the onboarding, and then we did an internal, and she did where they do the strength of the pelvic floor, and then we talked about how we fix that, gave me exercises, and that was it. And I was like, well, this is really like interesting. Like there's a whole part that I don't know of. I would send my woman. I was like, right now, you need to go to this person before you come to see me now, because this had opened my eyes to like, well, yeah, women should not be coming to me post birth. And the more and more I read about it, I was like, eek, we need to put some rules in place and set some boundaries. And then COVID hit. And for a lot of people, COVID was a terrible thing, and it was. But for people like you and Connor Harris and Katie Sinclair, suddenly you came onto our screens, and people who were running classes in person now had to do these biomechanic classes online. And it opened up a world that I did not know existed. I got onto, my husband pointed me to Connor first.
Yeah.
And I went to Connor Harris, and I went on his course. And for someone who knew this much about biomechanics, I would sit there just going, just mind blown, because I didn't understand him. But also the concepts of what he was talking about and what we see in people, that was mind blowing. And then I started to see that in people. And then Connor had a guest on who was Haley Carver. I don't know if you've heard of Haley.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So she was on it. She was talking about it. And then he had on as a special guest for the pelvic floor. And she was talking about pressure management. And she was talking about all these things that I hadn't heard of before, but affecting, pelvic floor, dysfunction. And so I started following her. And then she was talking about Katie Sinclair.
Yes.
And then, so the algorithm gods were like moving things around as to where I should go. And then Katie Sinclair, she broke things down in a slightly different way. I think more kind of layman's. I was like, oh yes, that makes even more sense. Yes, okay. And so she had this empowered performance. So after doing Connor's and Katie's, I definitely had like way more understanding of this. And then I was starting to see it in my women. And that was really groundbreaking for me, because I was like, right, this is what we're seeing. If I can follow these concepts that Katie and Connor are talking about, we're helping in a different way, where we're keeping that kind of more functional kind of movement going, where we don't have to take things away from women. And then I did a PRI course. So PRI, they're basically an umbrella for Connor and Katie.
Which one did you do? Was it the pelvis or the respiration?
I did myokinetic.
Oh, okay. None of them. Okay. That's one I haven't taken. The myokin. I want to, but
so that was like basically left ARC, BC kind of breaking it down. And then the algorithm gods brought me to you. And I was like, and you had just come out with your signature course. And I saw it. I was like, oh, this is perfect. This is, this is what Katie was talking about. And so I didn't know that was your first course that I was on.
That's awesome.
But I loved it. I soaked it up. I couldn't wait to get to every single module, because it all made such sense to me. Like and when I talk about like me as a kid doing whatever my brothers did, it really resonates, because I don't want any woman to feel like they're less than, or they can't do what they used to do. Now, that doesn't mean that we go straight into doing the stuff they were doing, but it means that we know how to get them back. And there's not a boundary. There's no like, oh, you're never going to be able to do that. It's that, well, you will. We're just going to do it in a different way. And that's my real why, because I just, as an active person, just to be told, if somebody had told me, well, you're always going to leak, or you're always going to feel that heaviness, I know that if I worked out and I felt that all the time, I would be put off, and I don't want that for women. I want women to be able to feel empowered to go and work out, and to not have that and not have to compartmentalize and to not have that hanging over their heads.
Mhm.
So your course was I was so excited after it. And then you offered the mentorship, and I was like, it was a no-brainer. And it's
Aw.
funny with your mentorship, because I don't know if it's ignorance, like complete ignorance on my side, but you were like, I'm opening this mentorship. And I'm like, yeah. And then I just see it's all pelvic floor physios, pelvic floor physio, pelvic. And I'm like, ooh, ooh. And then I'm like, no, it's fine. So, I'll be all right. And then, and then all of you are talking on the calls with all the, the terms and the jargon. And it was, I had to really concentrate, and I looked up things after the call. But after a while, it became, I didn't say anything on the calls for a long time because I didn't feel I could. But after a while, you know, like it's not a case of who is she talking, but it's, I didn't know the world of like intimate pelvic health.
Sure.
I knew I can do the lens back and look at someone, but it was that intimate pelvic health.
Yes.
But then I started off maybe about a year, I was chipping in with suggestions.
Yeah, you were.
I know. And you guys, in the beginning, you said, are you interested at all doing pelvic floor physio? I was like, no. I just thought this is the way I was going to help women. I was just going to stay in the gym coaching. I'd keep my pre and postnatal class, and then I'd learn everything I could from you. But as we all know, that wasn't enough after a while.
I was going to say, quite the turn of events now that you're literally in physio school. So walk us through that. How did you decide, and why? Because you were working with clients, you were helping them, you were getting them results. What made you want to take that next step to actually go to physio school, despite already doing such great work?
Well, it was after we finished a call, and there was a case there, and I think I had given some input. It had been well received, and I remember stopping, and there was like a turn. It was just a moment where I thought, I could do this. Like I could help women more, because for me, women come to me and they'll tell me their symptoms, and then I go by their symptoms, and then we help them. But I don't necessarily want to refer someone out. I'd rather they come to me, I check, and then I know exactly what's going on, and we go straight into the gym, or we go straight into clinic or whatever, and we deal with them rather than going somewhere else and maybe getting conflicting advice. That was it for me. And it was funny because the idea of being a pelvic floor physio in the beginning to me was like, because it is, right? But after that, just that one call, I was like, And so I started looking at universities around me. And like, I think I was 43 at the time. And I think because I've been active, and I've been always, since 2019, let's say, when I first found out about prolapses, I've been actively learning. So I've done like Steve's course, you guys, your Genesis, your evaluation of the pelvic floor. Yeah, did Alex Effer's mentorship. Like, it's not enough that we stop. Do you know what I mean? It's not enough. We have to keep learning. And I love that. And I just thought going to physio school, going to do a qualification is just more. It's going to be more that we can help women, because it is appalling. Like, all around the world, like women, they've had a bad deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I would hate, and you'll see, I mean, I'm sure you have clients where they come in and they say, I've been told not to do this, or I've been told I can never run again. And I'm just like, but this is somebody's passion and somebody's joy. And that's the resonating factor for me, is like, I want to get someone back to that thing that they love doing, that passion, that thing that gives them an outlet, that thing that makes them feel better, makes them better.
Wow. That's amazing. So what I'm kind of hearing is your reasoning for going to physio school. You're really trying to take out the middleman and just become the one-stop shop so that, because that is frustrating as like a patient or a client to go somewhere and they say, well, I can't help you yet. Go to this person first. And it's just so disjointed. And I imagine a lot of women and moms in particular are just like, I'm just not going to worry about like whatever. I'll just give up essentially because it's just an extra step on the mental load and the time and then like the conflicting, like you're hearing one thing and this person's saying the other thing. And it's just like, ugh. So, I mean, that truly to me is when I say like you're the ultimate picture of someone changing the game, like, and just doing the dang thing, like, that's what I mean is that you literally are like, I'll just go to physio school. That's what I'll do because then I can really show up for my patients and my clients like the way that I envision it and like the way I want to show up for them and help them like live their best lives. And so that's why I always say I'm like Collette is like the golden child, like golden student of like this is changing the game. Like I just love it. I'm so proud of you. I'm just so proud of you. I'm
Thank you.
thankful to know you, like all of the things. I
Well, I
am
would never have done it
curious.
without you.
Oh, I didn't pay her to say
Yeah.
any of this stuff, you guys, but
It's true.
I am curious, like about the internal side. Like we have talked a lot about this, like on mentorship calls. Like I talk about it on social media. I have a whole other podcast about, is internal assessment and treatment the holy grail? So I'm curious, like your stance on it. And I will refrain from sharing mine so I don't influence anything. But what is your stance on kind of the internal work as a trainer who is in physio school to become a pelvic floor physio? Like, kind of what is your view on that?
It's all I've had to rely on is somebody's telling me their symptoms. That's all I've had to rely on. And you know what, Becky? It's worked up till now. When people describe their symptoms, the spectrum is quite narrow. Like it's going to be, if it's a prolapse, it's going to be a heaviness. It's going to be a dragging. It's going to feel like a tampon. It's going to be issues with sex. It's going to, and before period, during period, it's going to feel like this. So, over the years, I have an understanding of, or when they say this, or, if they're having sex on their back, like, and they feel the pros, but don't feel in the front. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that could be, it could be more kind of rectus, or that I can't diagnose, but
Sure.
from experience and from what people say, that's kind of the understanding that I have. And then what I then do is from their symptoms and from when they feel the prolapse, so whatever they're doing. So this is really important to me, is if somebody says, I feel my prolapse when I squat, I deadlift, I run, I've got to watch them do that. You've got to watch them do the movement because there are so many things that we can pick up in that movement. And you know what? From your podcast, it was maybe in July where you talked about the foot and how that changed your whole game of your whole idea and mindset of which direction you go with this.
Yes.
I need to tell the story because it's absolutely mind-blowing to me. You talked about a client of yours who had urgent continence, and she got it because she got it when she was talking or reading a nighttime story, making different voices and singing. That's when she felt it. But you manipulated her foot because you'd gone on a foot workshop and she was talking. I think she changed her shoes or she was doing something or she was running or something. And you manipulated the foot and suddenly everything started to change. And I listened to that podcast while I was on holiday. I got back from holiday and one of my clients said to me, Coles, I know you've been away for a while. I didn't want to bother you on holiday, but I've been leaking for 3.5 weeks, just urge. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, well, when about, like, were you doing anything different? She was like, oh, we're on holiday. I was like, okay. And were you doing anything different? Oh, I was walking 10,000 steps. I was like, okay, good. And then she said, and I was doing flip-flops. I was like, flip-flops, you say?
Okay.
Well, there's a big toe that's not being used there.
Yeah.
So I said to her, look, this is going to sound weird, but we're gonna manipulate the foot a little bit in the session. Anyway, she came in and she said, yeah, my feet are really sore as well. Like they're really like tight. So we manipulated the foot. We did all sorts of things, got the shin moving, foot. And I said, I need you to tell me every single day how it is going. And she messaged me the next day. She said, oh, actually, I only leaked once. I was like, okay, good. Keep doing exercises. Second day, she was like, Collette, it was almost none at all. It was just like a drip. And then the third day, gone. And didn't have to change a thing, but got her to understand how the foot was moving. And that was urge incontinence. That was like a mind blown because it wasn't stress. It wasn't her
Right.
just bouncing along or running.
Mm-hmm.
That was because she hadn't pronated her foot for
Gosh.
2 weeks.
Yes. Yes.
Do you know?
It's so true. It's like, yeah, no
Yeah.
wonder, because it's just created for 2 weeks, walking around in flip-flops, all of that posterior tension. And I'm like, we could go on for hours about this. I mean, don't tempt
I
me
know,
with the foot talk. I love it. And kind of brings me to another question I wanted to ask you of like, what does it look like now with your clients when you're working with them and you have this kind of biomechanical lens? Can you walk us through maybe what you would used to have done with someone, and then now that you're actually trying to help them with some symptoms rather than just get stronger? Like, obviously that's a good thing, but also you've learned all this stuff. So I guess, how is it different from years ago to now?
I think the most important part is the listening. The listening that's going to tell you everything about your client, and looking at them, even if they're like sitting in a chair. How do they sit in a chair and how do they talk to you? Because you don't even have to put your hands on them to feel the tension. You can see the tension, just how they sit, everything's here, jaws bare. Are they sitting on the edge of the seat? And these are the things I've picked up over time, which I didn't know when I first, started up. These were not things that I would ever look at. But I think, doing the different courses, you guys all touch on that. Even just the breathing, which is such a huge part of what we learn, which so many people think is woo. And I keep driving home because I do these workshops around the Northeast for coaches and gyms and other, pelvic floor physios. And like, this is the lowest hanging fruit. If you can change someone's breathing, let's say a flared rib cage, and you can change that, you're going to change the pressure that's pushing down. I mean, I had a prolapse client, and she felt her prolapse when she was standing or kneeling, and we just got her to just change your breathing, and didn't feel the symptoms just because she made space. And if you want the buy-in, that is the buy-in, and that was never something that I would have done with a very basic knowledge before biomechanics. Becky, I hate to say it, like it was literally stick my fingers at just the gap and then be like, and I think I've built on the assessment as I go through the courses, but the eye becomes really tuned into how people move. So like even somebody getting up off a chair now, you can see what the hip versus the knee
When
is
they
doing,
avoid
and you could see,
one side or the other.
yeah, yeah, or they're trying to extend that knee before the hip, and you're like, okay, and then the foot is such a big part of it. Like, mind blown. I'm always want to put the foot and the rib cage on the same level
Yep.
of treatment.
Yep. Yep.
Because of that big toe.
I know. And like, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like what you're
Can't stop
saying,
seeing it.
like I've always been kind of a people watcher, even before I knew what I know now, even before, even in PT school, I would just watch people walk and, be like, oh, I wonder, it looks like his right hip hurts, or, whatever. And so it's like, now I'm like, oh, like that dude has hemorrhoids, like for sure, or like this lady definitely like has stress incontinence, and it's
No.
just from their movement patterns and how they are loading their foot, how they are rotating as they move, or really like not rotating as they move, or it's asymmetrical, or the ones, oh my gosh, the ones that pull themselves forward, like they're just, everything is just gonna fall forward and they're just like pulling themselves with their rib cage just pull. And I'm just like, oh, if we could just get you back in space. In the clinical mastermind, you shared an exercise with us one time using like either the rings or the TRX straps, either one can work.
Mhm.
And it was something about, having them hang and breathe. Do you know the one I'm
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
Can you share that with us? Because I use that all the time now on all my people. And so I learned that from you. It was such a great idea. So can you walk us through what it is and why you find it so helpful?
Yeah, so it's a version of posterior ribcage breathing, but with like passive help. So what we'd normally do is get them on all fours and push the floor away and open up the scap at the back, which allows them to breathe into that ribcage, which is so normally tight because of that, as you're talking about, that chest forward and really compressed upper back. And honestly, the prolapses, if you can open up that back of that ribcage, suddenly prolapses become
A thing of the past.
the thing of the past. But then what I did, it was actually one of the women she was leaking while skipping. And a lot of skippers, they rise like phoenixes, it's chest forward, up, you got that real kind of scissoring. And I'm like, no, I want you to think more London pigeon, like, it's, the bird's in itself because it's trying to survive, but they've all been told like big chest, open up,
Mhm.
which is absolutely fine, but that can cause issues of pressure, right?
Yeah.
And so this girl's really struggling because she was compressed through, and the rings were just next to her. I said, tell you what, I want you to hold onto the rings, so like a TRX system, and I want you to look at the sky, and you're just going to sit at the bottom, and you're just going to pull the scap apart, and then I want you to just hang there for 10 breaths. And she did that, and then she got up and she skipped, and she didn't leak. Like that had just opened up more space. And all it had done, I think it was a cascade events of it had pulled her back. She could then access all sorts of things down the line, even that full foot, kind of the foot, because they're pushing forward. They can only access like the front, and they don't get any of that movement that they should do through the foot, which I had yesterday. I had a lovely client, and this is one of your podcasts, which I did the story about. You said in your podcast that you had a client who had terrible hip pain, and she also had dysfunction. And you said to her, what is the output you want? And she said, no more pain in my hip. And you were like, what? What about your pelvic floor dysfunction? And so I had a client yesterday with knee, hip, and back pain, also had pelvic floor dysfunction. And you popped into my head, and I said, just to be curious, just to be sure, what do you want fixed most today? Because I was fully intent on going, right, do you feel your prolapse when you do this? Do you feel your prolapse? And she was like, I want the pain gone. I was like, okay, so no, if you're leaking and no, doesn't matter, don't care. Wants the pain gone. And that was just like, because nobody's ever said that to me. As in, like, everybody wants the feeling of whatever's happening gone. But she was like, pain gone. I don't care. She said, I'll leak and I can manage that discomfort. And I was like, well, we'll see, because if we reduce this pain, I can guarantee you're going to want this to go this to be reduced as well.
Yeah, and it's everything you said. It's just listening to our patients, because the chances are you could have done all the fancy things and made the focus on her leaking that day, right? And she probably would have thought, okay, this was cool, whatever. But more than likely, she would have had feelings of, not having gotten what she really came for, whether it's because you didn't ask or she didn't tell you or whatever, but it doesn't matter, because what matters is she felt heard and that you cared about what she actually wanted. And like, will she want to work on her leaking? Probably. Like you said, it'll also probably get better with what you're giving her anyways, which will get some buy-in from her. But yeah, it's the magic is in the communication, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. And just looking at like, they tell a whole story before they even open their mouths. And you can just tell that there's either tension or there's, it's compression. Compression's the big one, isn't it? Like, they will say it in different words, but you can hear it. They say compression. The lady yesterday said, I feel like I can't breathe and that I'm being pushed down. I was like, you need some IR. And we're going to give it to you.
And I'm going to give it to you.
Yes.
I
Good to you.
love it. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
Collette. Well, this was so amazing, so impactful, I am sure, for everyone tuning in. And just thank you so much again for coming. And I would love
Of
for people to be
course.
able to follow you. Tell us your Instagram handle again so they can look you up, and we'll link it also. But
Wonderful. It's at Strong AF Mums.
love it. Mums, like the English MUM, not moms,
Mums.
like over
Yes.
here.
MUM. Yes.
Yes. We'll
Not
link it for
moms.
sure.
Mum.
Mums.
Mums.
Physio.
Yes. Hello. Yes.
I love it. Well, thank you. Thank you, Collette. This was amazing. Dream guest, star student, amazing, game-changing gal. And so thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming. And I hope everyone else just enjoys the rest of your day and week and whatever it is that you have going on. And let's change the game, you guys.